The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of Talk Radio AM 640.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640.
I'm the Spaceman. This is AVFS. I'd like to welcome you in right now. If you're driving around town listening to AM 640, or maybe you're at work listening right now via the AM 640 app, picking up the show that way, and welcome you in too. Or if you're listening to me right now on Shaw Direct on channel 865, welcome you in also. Or if you're listening to me on your 3 or 4G personal communication device via the Stream the World software. Now available also free on Apple Music or the Radio Canada Player app. I welcome you in. Or maybe you're what some are still calling the best seat in the house, sitting in front of your Mac, your PC at home, logged on to 640toronto.com, picking up the live audio streaming there. I welcome you in. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you in. Let me start at the very beginning. This very, very important Illuminati year of chaos. First spring, now the summer of the 17th year in this new millennium, which forms an 8 in numerology, of course. 8's the sun worshipper's number. In this year, the chaos candidate has been placed in the office of the most powerful country in the world, America. His job is to become the disruptor president. And disruption is what he's been at the center of and the focus of since then. Believe me, when I say Donald J. Trump knows this, his job, and is very, very honored to be the one the elites have chosen to place into the Oval Office on this very important time in America's history. The demise of America is now officially underway in this 17th year of this new millennium. You've heard me say many times, repeating the phrase that America is the old empire and must make way for the new empire to arise. So the old empire must die. The old empire must fall to make way for the new. The one world government under the leadership of the Antichrist. What you and I are now witnessing is and has been the beginning of the collapse of the United States of America as an empire, as the economic engine of the world, as the policeman of the world. Soon to follow, total demise. How do I know? Total eclipses of the sun are great omens in the world of the Illuminati and witchcraft. And the U.S. is to be the site for a total solar eclipse. Twice in the next 7 years. There's more deeper into the show. There's actually 3, which I'll reveal later. Twins now, though. Twice in the next 7 years. Twins. And that's not all. The paths of the totality of both total eclipses will actually cross each other, creating a giant X in America. I'll reveal where that exact X actually intercepts deeper into the show tonight. The X, of course, is the mark of Cain, as I refer to it. After all, exterminate, exit. X marks the spot, as the saying goes. And X will mark the spot in America with the intersection of that cross in an area spanning across 3 states. Those states are Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky. And just where did the path of these twin eclipses in the next 7 years intersect exactly? Why? A little town in Illinois called Carbonville. You know what it's known as? To the locals, and by people that know of it, Little Egypt, the nickname. The Osiris connection there. These first twin eclipses, and this coming Monday is first in the month of August, and then again in April of 2024. More than 2,000 years ago, the Babylonians were able to actually calculate that there were 38 possible eclipses within a period of 223 months. That is about 18 years. Keep that number, 223, top of mind as I continue. 223, a backward 322, which is the sacred number of the powerful secret society fraternity that I speak about so often with those high-powered people placed in high-powered jobs that belong to Skull and Bones of Yale University. This period of 223 months is called a Saros cycle by modern astronomers, and a sequence of eclipses separated by a Saros cycle, which constitutes a Saros series. Now, this information gathered by me when I was researching the Manchester bombing and the Westminster Bridge attack in England in the spring. The Manchester event happened at exactly 223 days left in the year. The Westminster Bridge had the date the 22nd day of the 3rd month, May, or, I'm sorry, March, a hidden 223. Although today we know that the number of lunar and solar eclipses is not the exact same in every Saros series, but the achievement of these Babylonian ancient scholars in understanding this astronomical phenomenon way back then is very important to understand the elites' movements and their motivation for doing the things they're doing today. The realization of this Saros cycle, the movement of the sun, eventually allowed the ancient Babylonians to predict the occurrence of the next eclipse. The level of astronomical knowledge that was achieved in ancient Babylonia, southern Mesopotamia, around Iraq today, comes from the astrological tradition that saw eclipses as omens, foretelling the future of calamity. Even back then, astronomers and astrology were seen as exactly the same. Now, there is a difference between astronomy and astrology today. Back then, there was not. According to Babylonian scholars, eclipses could actually foretell the death of a king. The conditions for an omen to be considered that were not very simple. For instance, according to a famous astronomical work known by its initial words, Enuma, Anu, Enlil, meaning when the gods, Anu and Enlil, if Jupiter was visible during the eclipse, the king was safe. Lunar eclipses seem to have been particularly concerning, too, for the well-being and the survival of those ancient kings. This is Talk Radio on AM 640. I'm a Spaceman. This is AVFS, and I'm just getting started. I'm the guy to call a Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Communicate by email, Spaceman, 640toronto.com. One of the addresses, the other space at 640toronto.com. JM writes, listening from Tofino, BC the past couple of weeks, which is the end of the road of the Trans-Canada Highway. Really love the Dog Days of Summer show. Getting ready to check out the eclipse on Monday on the beach. It's going to be great. Working with a band called Garvey's out here, then back to home base. Great respect for your research and your spirit for getting it out. Be well, signed JM. I thank you for every single one that I received, by the way. I thank you so much for them. So, as I was saying before the break, the Babylonian scholars foretold the death of the king through eclipses. In order to preempt the monarch's fate, a mechanism was actually devised. The substitute king ritual. There's over 30 mentions of this ritual in various letters from Assyria, which was northern Mesopotamia, dating to the first millennium BC. Earlier references to a similar late chronicle, a king of the city of Isin, about 125 miles to the southeast of Baghdad today. Eremiti was replaced by a gardener called Enlil Bani as part of a substitute king ritual. Lucky for his gardener, the real king died while eating hot soup, so the gardener actually remained on the throne and became king for good. This year, this new millennium 17th year, the number 17, of course, has got incredible significance, and it goes right back to those ancient times of Babylonia and ancient Egypt again, of course. And it has great significance in pure mathematics, too, as well as applied sciences, laws, music even, religion, sports. The number 17 has a lot of cultural phenomena behind it. 17 is the sum of the first 5 prime numbers, you know. And 17 is the 7th prime number. In the UK, the minimum driving age for a car or a van is 17. In the US and Canada, it's the age at which a person can purchase, rent, or reserve M-rated video games without parental consent. Also, in some U.S. states and some jurisdictions around the world, even 17 is the actual age of sexual consent. In most states, Canada, in the UK, the age at which a person can donate blood without parental consent is 17. In a lot of countries and regions, the age of 17 is when a person can get a driver's license. In other countries, it's 16. In the U.S., the age at which a person can watch, rent, or purchase R-rated movies without parental consent is also 17. And the age of 17 in the U.S. is the age where a person can enlist in the armed forces with parental consent. At this age, a person can also apply for a private pilot license. In Greece, it's the voting age. In Chile, the minimum driving age is 17. And, of course, I brought this up the odd time on this show. Stevie Nicks' The Edge of 17 song actually describes the occult practices of becoming a witch and coming of age at 17 for initiation to occur into the cult. Why all of this over a number? In this case, the number 17. Osiris, the very first sun god of the ancient Egyptian religion, died on the 17th of the month of Athir. Isis, his sister and wife, also known as Athir, as well as many other names, Venus is another, same personage, held a funeral for Osiris that started on the 17th day of Athir and lasted for 4 days. Isis is the female incarnation of Lucifer, who can be male or female. Osiris is the Egyptian lord of the underworld, of course, and judge of the dead, brother, husband to Isis, and one of the most important gods of ancient Egypt. The name Osiris is the Latinized form of the Egyptian Usir, which is interpreted as powerful or mighty. He's the firstborn of the gods Geb, meaning earth, and Nut, sky. Shortly after the creation of the world, he was murdered by his younger brother Set, brought back to life, though, as the myth goes, by his sister wife Isis. This myth and the gods involved became central to Egyptian culture and religious life. And today, the ancient Egyptian mystery religion is the religion followed by our leaders in this world. Now, as for the chaos that's being done, caused, even staged, to bring about change, has really in the last few months escalated incredibly quickly to get us to where we are today, with the programming of the masses to fear everything, everywhere. Fear being created to bring about a feeling of oneness for all countries, and to have a common enemy, because all countries are in the crosshairs of the Illuminati, so as to be able to form a one world governmental system, of course, for the whole planet. Many people are now seeing these events that happen to actually be staged. A show to promote the fear into oneness. It can be done through CGI and technology with video, news stories. CGI is actually just generated imagery, special effects created using software on a computer, as well as old file footage brought back by the Illuminati-controlled mass media, brought back from past events years ago and passed off as now happening live. You're looking at it now appearing, but it's not. I repeat, it's not, but it appears as though it is because of video. Those are the black magic spells I speak about consistently on AVFS, Talk Radio AM 640. These now commonplace vehicle attacks have replaced the shooters and the programming of the psychiatrists who handle these perpetrators and let them loose. Now, let me bring your attention to an incident that's already been programmed into your psyche. This event has already been shown to you, this vehicle driving into a crowd of people. Now, there was an event, as I said, already shown to you earlier in the spring, that's already programmed into your psyche. The event's already been shown to you. Times Square, New York, May 20th. May 5th month, 20th day, year 2017. In numerology, that date equals a 17. And of course, 7 plus 1 is the sun worshipper's number. A woman was killed. One woman. Just like at Charlottesville. One woman was killed for the blood sacrifice, and at least 22 people injured that day when a speeding car plows through pedestrians in Manhattan's bustling Times Square. The driver of the 2009 Honda Accord, who's now revealed as Richard Rojas of the Bronx, tested positive for PCP and told police that God made him do it. He was one of the programmed by a psychiatrist, Patsy, who was let loose on the streets. He also told people he expected officers to shoot him. And we were told on the Illuminati-controlled mass media that there was no indication the incident was any kind of an act of terrorism. It wasn't? Yes, it was. It was an act that caused terror in the heart of New York City, Times Square. It's a terror act. But what many people don't know was that that particular act carried an Illuminati message, as they all do, but this one was sent for the rest of this solar eclipse year of 2017 for America and the world. I'll tell you about that in a second. Here's a list of the European deadly vehicle attacks this year, all beginning in 2014, way back in France, December of 2014. The van driven into a Christmas market in Nantes. A car rams pedestrians in Dijon, leaving more than 20 wounded. Nice, France, July 20th, skipped to 2016. A Tunisian drives a truck into the crowds at the Promenade de l'Anglais, killing 86 people on Bastille Day, covered right here on AM 640. Berlin, Germany, December 19, 2016. Tunisian Anis Amri plows his truck into a Christmas market at Breitscheidplatz in Berlin, killing 12. London, March 22, 2017. 4 die when a car rams into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge, and the driver then stabs to death a policeman. Stockholm, Sweden, April 7, 2017. 5 killed when a man drives a truck through a shopping area. June 3rd, London, 2017. 8 die when 3 jihadists drive a van into pedestrians on London Bridge and then stab passers-by. London, 19th of June, 2017. A man killed in a van on an area near Finsbury Park, outside of a mosque. Paris, August 9th, 2017. Man rams a BMW into a group of soldiers, injuring 6. New York, May 20, 2017. The Honda Accord, driving into that throng of people I told you about in Times Square. A message of more to come, too. More on that message in that Times Square footage when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the Spaceman. This is AVFS. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640. And A View from Space. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com. That's one address. The other, space at 640toronto.com. Thanks so much for the ones that you've sent. I really appreciate it. I really do. So, of course, I've just ran through all of the attacks using vehicles as the killer weapon. And the latest, of course, being the Barcelona Las Ramblas attack. And the one at Cambrils. The Barcelona one. Catch the age of the driver of the van that they say was the perpetrator? 17 years old. Drove a van along Barcelona's crowded Las Ramblas thoroughfare. It's really wide. And there's no cars allowed, no vehicles allowed at all, so you can walk it just about anywhere and everywhere. He was swaying and swerving, plowing into tourists, trying to kill as many as he could, leaving 13 dead, and then more than 100 injured. Yes, the number 13 invoked in this attack. The Illuminati always mark their events with their number. You know, I was watching it at the very outset as the story was breaking. I was at work in the media, was watching the number go from 12 to 11, back to 12, then back to 13. The original was 13, then fell to 12, and then went back up again. In other words, they played with that number. The date for Las Ramblas attack in Barcelona, August 17, 17th year of the new millennium. Examine the date of the Las Ramblas attack in Barcelona for yourself. Look at it. The date written 17/8 for the month /17 for the year. That's the day, the month, and the year. Broken down in numerology. The 17th to start, 1 plus 7 is 8. The 8th day, another 8 for the month. Yet another 8 is formed for the year at the end. A triple 8 is formed on the date when written, 17/8/17. The highest magnification possible in witchcraft is 3 for a spell to have the most potency possible and the highest effect. And you have to agree, the effect of the Las Ramblas attack on the 888 day has really affected all the cities around the world. They're all scrambling. All the so-called authorities and officials are scrambling to figure out a way how they can stop vehicles from speeding through crowded areas. And you can't, of course. That's why this was a chosen route. You can't. Incredibly expensive. Where this broadcast emanates from, Toronto, Ontario, Canada right now, there's the big fair, and our summer fair, our exhibition taking place, and concrete barriers up. Knee-jerk reactions like that happening all over the world. Yes, and North America is worried, but Europe is now once again really on the nervous edge, waiting, watching for the next ISIS attack with a vehicle. This has been telegraphed, I said earlier, to the European citizens. Just yesterday, one day after the Las Ramblas attack, police and security services are now hunting, right this moment as I speak to you, for the remaining members of a Moroccan-born terror cell, they say, amid fears that they could be preparing further attacks at popular tourist areas around Europe. A French security official just said last night that Spanish police were looking for a Renault Kangoo van rented this past Thursday, the same day as the event happened in Las Ramblas in Spain, by the suspects that may have crossed into France. These security officials believe the attacks in Barcelona and Cambrils were the work of a terror cell of at least 12, who may have been inspired by the London Bridge outrage in June, it said. So Europe is really vigilant, on edge. Summer ruined. Tourist industry taking a huge hit, too. The Illuminati are set on the goal of crashing the economy as well, and ridding themselves of borders, and ridding themselves of currencies. To this end, there have been a total, so far, of 10 staged incidences of vehicles used as the kill weapon, with more to come in Europe and North America. It's been telegraphed to us. How do I know? It's already been shown to you, as I said, telegraphed to you in the New York City episode. Let me get back to that. The one that was supposedly not a terrorist attack contains the message. The picture of the almost flipped over car that event in Times Square was disseminated all around the world by the Illuminati-controlled mass media. Ended up, coincidentally, directly in front of a sign. The sign above the car, banged up real good, almost on its roof, reads, Spring. Just the word, spring. Beside that, though, is an address in the picture that was disseminated around the world. You know what numbers are involved. Numerology is always being used. The address on the street sign read 15 Broadway. The symbology and meaning is manifest. When you look at the car, which is the first place your eyes go at the picture, your eyes shift after they've seen the car, go instinctively to see more, look for more. Then they look to read what's above the car, which is what I've already said, at the center of your attention. All of a sudden, your mind will see the numbers on the street sign that reads 15. But the numbers 15, instead of coming into your thought process as numbers, they come as letters. 15. Take the 5 out. Place an S that looks just like a 5, right? Put an S there. You have one S. Let's say the 1 is the I. Not a 1 at all. I-S. Not the number 15. But the number 5 looks just like the shape of an S, as in ISIS. So your mind sees ISIS, not the 15 Broadway. And the word next to ISIS is Broadway, as I just said. That's the name. The word is actually, well, what comes to mind when you hear Broadway is plays, staged plays. That's what your mind and your thought process conjures up. ISIS, staged play. So really the message becomes ISIS theater, as in a staged play. Because that's what you're watching. It's a show for you all, to make you very afraid. It's the same with the event involving the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Charlottesville was chosen because it invokes slavery, whites' domination over blacks, with a swastika, of course, is a symbol for white supremacy. Again, the swastika is sun worship, pure and simple. Charlottesville is the home to the University of Virginia, with its core campus designed by Thomas Jefferson. On the outskirts of Charlottesville stands Thomas Jefferson's mountaintop plantation, Monticello, which includes the mansion he lived in and also the rebuilt slave quarters that he used to house his slaves. What else do you think was behind the decision to stage this event in Charlottesville? Yes, Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. He was also an American founding father who was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence and later served as the 3rd President of the United States from 1801 to 1809. They're going to probably have to rip this all down. This is America coming apart at the seams. Busted. blasting out all over, tearing this down, tearing down their past, because someone is tearing their future down. This, of course, opened up a door wide to power the U.S. race war to a level not seen in years. All culminating now with white supremacy, Nazism, and the solar eclipse, of course, which is the real reason behind this potent symbol known as the swastika. It's connected to sun worship. And why do you think all of this incredible stuff is happening this year, the year of the eclipse, 2017? Well, that's the reason. The sun is the Illuminati's god. Spaceman Talk Radio, AM 640. Shows a view from space. There's more right after this. Hey, it's the Spaceman on Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. You know where all the Brahmins live in the United States of America? They're all gathered in one area, really. The Brahmins, who are the enlightened ones, the elites of the elites, they live around the Boston area and a little farther north. In Boston, they've got their troubles today with another big demonstration, with the counter demonstration scheduled for the same exact spot. Just a carbon copy of Charlottesville. Exactly the same MO, planned the same way. Big firestorm, free speech. The other groups against the free speech actually want to go back to the white supremacists. You say you're free speech, you're a white supremacist supporter. You know, they get caught up in all of that politics that this show does not get into at all. But that's happening tonight now, as I speak to you, in Boston, where they actually want to change the sign around the fabled Ball Yard family park. The old owner, you see, Yaki, the Yaki family, have a street there called Yaki Way. And they want that name changed now. Actually, the brand new, John Henry, the brand new owner, well, not the brand new, but the one that took the Red Sox off of the Yankees, wants to change it. Because he's Illuminati controlled. He's playing into the whole meme of racism to build it even higher. And of course, Boston Red Sox are one of those great teams in Major League Baseball with a great storied lore behind them. Yaki Way, they want to change it, rename it, because Mr. Yaki was a racist. He was the last team in Major League Baseball to hire a black. Last one. Passed up Jackie Robinson. Passed up a few more really great black ball players because the color of their skin wasn't white. So now that's been evoked. But before this, last year, say, Yaki was a wonderful man. Now, they're throwing everything to the woods, or to the wolves. Everything. America is coming apart at the seams. The great old folklore, the wonderful stories of how great the past was, is now looking ugly, stained. James Alex Fields Jr., the accused who was charged with ramming his Dodge Challenger. Here we go again. The Dodge Challenger, yeah, that was the make of the car, used on purpose. That was driven into that crowd of counter-protesters last Saturday night in Charlottesville, Virginia, that were confronting a white supremacist group during their rally. Get this. It was allowed to happen. Things began to get very heated between the two sides. And it was allowed to get out of hand. How? Near the peak of the heated confrontation, there was police presence, all right. Oh, yes. They were there watching it all unfold. But did the police do anything? No. They instead decide to stand down and do nothing. This was just before the climax, too. Just before the car drives directly into the crowd, challenging the white supremacists with a challenger. Challenging the people that were against the white supremacists. The climax of the event, the reason given for this stand down by the police, they said it was too dangerous at that moment for the police to actually interfere at that time. Dangerous? Isn't that their job? That's exactly why they were supposed to be there. If there was trouble, they were supposed to quell the trouble. But no, the police in Charlottesville stood by, and it was allowed to escalate to the climax of the event of hate. That's when the car, the Challenger, which had an easy route into that crowd of counter-demonstrators, along with the police watching, was driven right at and into a large group of people, calling down the white supremacists. Yes, the climax, like a well-scripted movie. A scene happening in real life, though. Some white supremacist does what again? Allowed to drive the vehicle in front of the police directly into the crowd, killing a woman who becomes the lone blood sacrifice in this ritual event. Because someone has to die, or the momentum for the rise of this hatred will not grow and grow. And if there was only injuries, the Illuminati-controlled mass media does not really have a good, powerful hit. It's the race war that's really been brewing since slavery was abolished, and now all of a sudden starting to heat up big time in America again, with whites now even protesting. And why now, you ask? It's the power of the sun. It's the approaching solar eclipse, the omen over America. What do you think all of a sudden? And it is all of a sudden that there's this rise of white supremacy demonstrations rearing their ugly head in the U.S. Blacks protesting? Oh, sure. Yeah. We've witnessed that over and over and over. But whites protesting a racial cause? Whites standing up for their white race? Oh yeah, sure. We've seen black, as I said, very often. For good reason, too, a lot of it. But whites? The privileged in America? Protesting? Just look at who the white protesters were, picked to represent the whites, neo-Nazis. You know, the swastika is their emblem, of course. The symbol of the swastika is the sun worshippers' symbol reversed, because it's the wheel of the sun. The spokes in a swastika depict the seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. Dates back to the ancient Babylonian, Mesopotamian times. The direction of which those spokes point, though, is very, very important. The direction in which these spokes point represents the flowing in or out of what's known in witchcraft as Atma power. The left-handed swastika is presumed to be the clockwise rotation, depicts the flowing in of the Atma power at the North Pole. It prophetically describes the Aryan exodus from the inner earth via the North Pole. The right-handed swastika, the one the Nazis used, is the counterclock rotation, which represents the flowing out of the Atma power from the opening of the South Pole, referred to as the pit in the occult. This reverse sign is also the wheel of the black sun. You've seen tons of Nazi photos and movies and TV shows. The SS or stormtroopers were also from that wheel of the black sun. They wore black uniforms. That's why. This is also prophetically foretelling the Aryan return to an inner earth via the South Pole or the pit. This pit is exactly the same pit mentioned in the King James Version of the Bible, Revelations, are you ready? 17. Yeah. Let me make this very clear to you. ISIS, the scourge of the earth right now. Everyone knows the name. Everyone fears. Everyone hates. ISIS is the spirit used to bring about the coming rise of the Antichrist. ISIS, the sister and wife of the very first sun god of the ancient Egyptian mystery religion, Osiris, who gave the first immaculate birth to the reincarnation of Osiris, the son Horus. Yes, Isis is the spirit that's being used. Isis, by the way, is the origin of every single cult that's ever been formed on this planet. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more, and it's next. The Spaceman is Talk Radio, AM 640. Please send your emails to communicate by email only to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. Thanks for that one you've sent. Really appreciate it. Truly do. I want to make one thing perfectly clear, and I want to repeat it one more time. ISIS is the spirit chosen by the Illuminati, the sister wife of Osiris, the mother of all cults, being used to bring about the coming of the Antichrist. He will come to power through a brutal war, such as the world has never seen. Fought by Islam versus Christianity and Judaism. Some of those words, by the way, such as the world has never seen, used by Donald Trump earlier concerning the North Korea nuclear confrontation, if you'll remember. Now, I told you that if it weren't for this impending solar eclipse event happening this coming Monday, 17th year of the millennium, in the very home of the current policeman of the world, and still struggling, but still the engine of the global economy, the the U.S. That none of this is unprecedented chaos would be happening at all. None. Would you believe me if I told you that? Because I am telling you that. This would not all be happening. Charlottesville would not have happened. You know, things like Trump actually becoming president. And this now wrapped up race war in America. Yes, the sun is the elite's reason for doing all things. So just when was the last solar eclipse seen from the United States? And when will the next one happen after Monday? The last solar eclipse viewed in the U.S. was in 1979, February 26, whose path crossed through the northwestern United States of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, and Canadian provinces of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. That was in 79. After the 2017 solar eclipse, the next annular solar eclipse that can be seen in the continental United States will be October 14th, 2023, which will be visible from Northern California to Florida. Following this, yes, there will be yet another ominous omen, a total eclipse of the sun on April 8th, 2024. Visible from Texas to Maine. 3 total eclipses of the sun in the next 8 years. Oh, the Illuminati are just absolutely having a field day with the numerology. And it's so intricate, so perfect. So I even couldn't make this stuff up if I was just saying, okay, let's just make it up. I couldn't do it. And this coming eclipse, they call it the Great American Eclipse. How long will the sun be totally eclipsed? Well, it'll last from 10:20 in the morning, about mid-totality, beginning in Madras, Oregon. And then it ends in Columbia, South Carolina, 2:43 p.m. sharp. A total of 4 hours and 23 minutes to zip completely across the country. During past eclipses, aircraft have actually been used to stay within the umbra for long periods of time, longer periods of time than people on the ground, which lengthens, of course, the duration of the totality, right? On June 30th, 1973, people aboard a prototype Concorde 001 supersonic jet stretched the length of a total solar eclipse to an incredible 74 minutes, while those watching it on the ground experienced totality for a maximum of 7 minutes and 4 seconds. That figure of 7 minutes, 4 seconds is still pretty extraordinary because it was just 28 seconds less than the longest duration of totality possible for a ground-based observer. Now, this coming Great American Eclipse on Monday could have a big problem for a lot of people. Clouds could be a big problem for many, especially with the chemtrail-produced rain clouds we've been getting all this summer. But the worst place just might be Salem, Oregon, for cloud cover. Now, I have to say that the first ever recorded solar eclipse in history, all time, was recorded on October 22nd, 2136 BC. It's mentioned in the Chinese history book known as the Chuking, or the Book of History. I'm sure there were other eclipses, But the earliest ever recorded one is that one, October 22, 2136 BC. Now, the black sun in Mesoamerican mythology has many mystical meanings, meaning an eclipse, of course, a total eclipse. Among them is connected to the god of Quetzalcoatl and his penetration in the underworld through the west door, the door of death, after his diurnal passage on the sky. For the Mexicas, there were two suns, the young day sun and the ancient dark sun. Some scholars actually see the mythological black sun as the ancient female origin of all. It is both the tomb and the womb. This way it's the oneness that uniformly integrates unawareness, death, and yet an expectation still of reproductivity of a population through eggs and seeds. The Aztecs actually associated the passage of the black sun on its nightly journey through the underworld in the image of a butterfly. Now, the butterfly, in turn, is an archetypal symbol of the transcendent soul, the transformation and mystical rebirth. They also call the program people in show business monarch butterfly, programmed to put out the Antichrist message, have the image of the Antichrist message. Now, the earth goddess, it's a Polotl, the obsidian butterfly, also known, that devoured people during solar eclipses. Now, while the Aztec underworld was the eternal dwelling place of the souls, according to the Codex Rios, the underworld was made up of 9 layers, Satan's favorite number. The first level was the Earth's surface, which also had the entrance, or the face of a gigantic toad that devoured the dead and gave access to the other 8 lower levels. The souls of the dead occupied the 9th level, known as the Mictlan, Ocopocelocan. Now, I have to explain to you what a toad, a frog, means in the occult, which is a demon. Frogs. King James Version of the Bible uses frogs too, toads, to mean demons. Now, the connection with nocturnal elements is also found in the legend of the god Tezcatlipoca, son of the primordial god Ometeotl, who was the god of dualities, light and darkness. More on that when I return on Talk Radio AM 640 as I color the background to the solar eclipses. It's Space on Talk Radio AM 640. It's the Spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. Emails, please send them to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. So the ancients in South America, the followers of Quetzalcoatl, also have a connection with nocturnal elements. It's found in the legend of the god Tezcatlipoca, son of the primordial god Ometeotl, who was a goddess of dualities, as said before the break, lightness, darkness. Black Tezcatlipoca, as he was known, was one of 5 sons of the creation myth of some Nahua peoples. He ruled over the north, the earth, night, sorcery, and also was the sole judge, ruled over judgment. Another interpretation held that the sun god, Huitzilopochtli, crossed the underworld during the night, bestowing light to the forgotten souls, but he demanded human blood as payment for this task. Blood sacrifices before his nightly effort. He would be accompanied from zenith to setting by the Siwa Pitlins, the souls of women who had died in childbirth, when they reappeared as moths on Earth. And you know how moths always are attracted directly and fly right directly into a light. An archaeological scene, many of them actually, has the plumed serpent showing a man with a black sun within a yellow sun. In this way, the spinning of the sun and the black sun shows a wheel crossing with a covering motion. You know, like an eclipse, where 4 black rays move over 4 yellow rays. According to some researchers, these sets of 4 rays relate actually to the 4 cardinal points in the 4 quarters, like as depicted in the sun wheel, the swastika. Summer, spring, fall, winter. They represent the governance held by the gods over the human race since its infancy, as well as the annual rotation of the heavens and the universal rulership portrayed in the great dance called Mito Tilitsili, which reproduces the appearance of a sun wheel. Now, in the case of a planet orbiting the sun in an elliptical orbit, the sun usually occupies one of the focus points of the planet's orbit. The second focus is an empty point in space. This empty focus is known as the black sun of that planet's orbit. There's also a black moon, although it should be really called the black Earth, defined as the second focus of the moon's orbit around the Earth. The black suns of Earth and the planets within its orbit are very close to the sun itself. So close, in fact, that it's difficult to use them for any astrological purposes. The black sun for the orbit of Venus is actually inside the sun itself. Inside the orbit of Venus is very nearly a circle. The distance between the foci of its orbit is less than the radius of the entire sun. The black sun for Saturn's orbit is the first black sun that is outside Earth's orbit. It lies approximately 162 million kilometers, we're told, from the center of the sun, whereas the Earth's orbit, at a mean distance of 149 million kilometers. The black suns for Mars, Jupiter, can be useful for astrological purposes, though, but they're both very near the orbit of Mercury and therefore always lie within a fairly small fixed range from our sun, considered from a geocentric position. The black sun for Saturn is the one whose positions are given in the ephemeris. It can be misleading to calculate black suns for the planets beyond Saturn, though. This is because the sun is not really at one of the foci of these planets' orbits at all. Instead, because they move so slowly, they tend to orbit the center of mass of the solar system, which is known as the barycenter. This is really comes into play with Neptune's orbit. So the decision to use the black sun of Saturn as the primary black sun was arrived at through astrological considerations and symbolic association. Saturn is Satan. Saturnalia was one of the ancient ritual rites of ancient Rome, with blood sacrifices. First is a symbolic counterpoint to the sun of light. It's desirable that the black sun should be able to enter any of the possible traditional astrological aspects within it. This is only possible if the black sun is placed outside of Earth's orbit. This placement then results in a rather odd zodiacal movement. This gets a little too complicated for me to get into with you tonight, but the association between Saturn and the black sun is an alchemical one, an occult symbol that's traditional. In alchemy, the black sun represents the nigredo stage of the alchemical operation, the stage of calcination or blackening of the first matter by burning. The color black, you see, has always been associated with Saturn since ancient times and is not merely a feature found in contemporary Western occultism. Clothed in black is one of the epithets of Saturn in Vedic scripture. You also find the crow or the raven, the birds, and the death's head, or skull and crossbones, associated with this nigredo stage of the alchemical operation. And in Vedic texts, Saturn is described as riding a crow, carrying a skull. Finally, another of the epithets of Saturn is, in ancient astrology, meaning great lord, dark sun, and son of the sun. In these symbols, the black sun is really conflated with Saturn himself. The mystic Carl Jung wrote about the black sun, or Sol Niger, as it's pertained to psychology in his alchemical works that he wrote. The psychiatrist and pioneering LSD therapist Stanislav Grof related an anecdote of a client who's spontaneously experienced a vision of the black sun during a session of what they call holotropic breathing. He later associates the symbol with the core self of this particular person on LSD, does the psychiatrist. The hidden radiance underlining the manifest sun or ego. The alchemist Jean Dewey, in a lecture before the philosophers of nature, actually stated this: this black sun of Saturn is one that emits all the mystical influences of Saturn, and that time, chances of contact with eternity are maximum. You see, Saturn is the god of time. This is the meaning behind Crowley's reference to the Book of Thoth. According to an ancient tradition, the sun is also black. You know, if you look at the sun for too long, it becomes black. There's a black dot in the middle. It gets rather large, too, if you can keep looking at it. And after a while, all of the light goes away and all you see is black. But never stay that long. You will burn your eyes, as the Illuminati-controlled mass media has been repeating ad nauseum for over 2 weeks. Contact with the black sun is associated with the experience of burning away the dross of the personality, leaving the gold or essential nature, you see, of the first matter. It's analogous in some ways to the abyss that lies before Binah. That's in the Thelemic Holy Book. Liber 231, the symbol of the black sun, whose jinn is Chiva Abracadabra Kadavil. And it's attributed to the path of Cheth, which crosses the abyss. A lot of the symbolism of Liber Cheth is approximate to the black sun as a result. See, the pseudo-sephira of Daath also resonates with the symbolism of the black sun. It is the invisible sun, or as Kenneth Grant, the researcher, referred to it, and psychiatrist, Tippereth within. The planetary forces of the tree of life revolve around the Tippereth, you see, but Daath is the empty second focus, not really a Sephiroth at all in its own right, but a void, a space. This mystery is further alluded to in the god name of Tiphareth, meaning the abyss. Now, the closest approach to Earth of the black sun generally happens on June 24th every year. You know what June 24th is? It's the feast day of St. John the Baptist and the holiest day of the Templar calendar. Jay-Z, the monster musical power force in the United States, belongs to that cult, St. John the Baptist. Now, on this date, the black sun is in opposition to the visible sun, while the visible sun is in the 93rd degree of the zodiac. The sun and the black sun, therefore, occupy the signs associated with Ayin and Cheth. I just talked about, the addition of which makes 78. Misla, the influence from Kether. This is the period during which the black sun is at its fastest motion, retrograde, during which it moves faster than the moon due to its nearness to the Earth, of course. Now, the black sun is conjunct with the sun on a very auspicious date, December 24th. Analogous to an eclipse of the black sun, then, although in constriction to a typical eclipse, the dark sun is blotted out by the visible sun. Some alchemists actually consider this a bad time in which to attempt alchemical workings, casting spells, since the black sun, the source of contact with eternity, is furnished from the earth and occulted by the visible sun itself. So the power is not very potent at all. The motion of the black sun has many black sun feast days that is celebrated in this world today, when it changes signs or makes contact with the visible sun. I'll have those next, those dates, coming up on Talk Radio AM 640 next. Please direct your emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com, one address, the other space at 640toronto.com. GR writes, "Hey, Space, greetings from Des Moines, Iowa. Loud and clear using the TuneIn app. Lucky I'll see the solar eclipse somewhere between Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Wells, Nevada, off Interstate 80 westbound, on a delivery from Canada to Reno, Nevada. Perfect timing indeed, as I deliver in Reno on Tuesday morning." And he says, "Keep up the educational broadcasts. My brain sizzles on Saturday nights listening to you." Only to entertain. So these feast days for the black sun, of course, they're going to revolve around some very auspicious dates that we celebrate here on Earth. February 18th, one of them, when it enters Aquarius. Then the black sun on April 21st enters Pisces. This is usually when the spring equinox is. June 7th, it turns retrograde in Pisces. June 19th, when it re-enters Aquarius. June 22nd, when it re-enters Capricorn. June 23rd, when it re-enters Capricorn also. Also June 24th, when it opposes the visible sun and enters Sagittarius. June 26th also is celebrated when it enters Scorpio. June 29th, when it enters Libra. July 11th, when it turns direct in Libra. And August 13th, when it enters Scorpio. October 17th, when it enters Sagittarius. December 18th, when it enters Capricorn. And December 24th, when it conjuncts with our visible sun, right at Christmas. These feast days obviously center on time of the summer solstice, when the black sun is moving fastest and therefore changes sign rapidly. This is when the energy of the black sun is most available and most powerful to the adepts. So it's not really uncommon for the dying at all to be spiritual, trying themselves, as it were, to the... tying themselves to the mast of a sinking ship, you could relate to. Look at David Bowie's last video. Black Star. It pointed toward an Aztec interpretation of the song's meaning. The video, Black Star, showed a woman finding the bejeweled skull of dead astronaut Major Tom during a solar eclipse. She then brings the skull back in the video as a relic to be worshipped by a circle of women in a pagan ritual. The song references a village in Norway called Ormen, which is the dragon, and the symbol of the serpent is one associated with primordial Earth Mother, Virgin, Whore, Goddess. There's also a reference to a ship captured by Olaf called the Orban Lang when he refused to convert to Christianity from paganism. So Bowie always had a disdain for a certain brand of Christianity, and it's evident in some of his songs. Modern Love, for example, as well as his penultimate album, second last, title song video, The Next Day, released in 2013, when he viciously satirizes Catholic clergy abusing the poor, selling suffering porn, and cavorting with loose women turned martyrs. He even breaks the fourth wall, as it's called, and foreshadows his death with his sudden vanishing after he thanks actors Gary Oldman and Marion Cotillard and everybody else, meaning us. The song's lyrics really are telling. They point to the fact that the only divinely feminine women smile and kneel for as vessels of life are the literal gateway to this world. In the video, they honor the executed, bejeweled skull of David Bowie as having transcended, rather than being nullified for, as the esoterics are fond of saying. They say, nihilo ex nihilo. Nothing comes from nothing. The ideas being the window of the soul suggest a belief in an undying and divine consciousness that must have been reassuring to a man supposedly succumbing to cancer, David Bowie. No song Over the Rainbow. The lyrics go, on the day of execution, on the day of execution, only women kneel and smile. Ah, ah. At the center of it all, your eyes, your eyes. In this video, Lazarus, Bowie sings without eyes and lurches back into his coffin-like wardrobe closet. Very macabre, very bizarre. Look up here. I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. I've got drama that can't be stolen. Everybody knows me now. Oh, I'll be free, just like that bluebird, the song goes. Now, it could possibly be that the reference to the happy little bluebird who flies over the rainbow and it's extremely interesting that possibly the three crucified, blinded, and hip-gyrating scarecrows in his Black Star video references the brainless masses controlled and tortured by the programmer Beast. I personally think this actually was a parting shot against the cultural programming made possible through him via pop music. And what's more, I believe that the Lazarus song of David Bowie at the very end is actually an apology for pimping himself out. And what I mean by that is for selling out his talent for money and ass, as he often even called it himself. Now, this, I believe, exposes for all to see, for those who have an interest to comprehend, to understand the real role that the art of pop music culture has in mind control of us who listen and its stars who perform it in our world today. It all comes back to the Illuminati's God, the one who is coming to have that spirit possess the one they will call the willful king, meaning he will give up willingly his mind and his body to Lucifer to enter, and then will become the Antichrist. A pact with the devil. You've heard it so often, haven't you, in music? Well, it's true. I believe it to be true. The superstars that make it to the very peak are the ones that have been given everything they could ever desire and more, but only for a short time. Then the bill must be paid. The pact with the devil. It's put into a song that's been covered by quite a few acts. Eric Clapton was one of them. The song I'm talking about is Crossroads. Well, this song called Traveling Riverside Blues that Robert Johnson did had a huge influence on rock and roll. It was actually remade as Crossroads by Eric Clapton, which mentions Rosedale with the very same phrase Johnson used. Robert Johnson, the one who wrote it. It was also covered by Led Zeppelin, whose more well-known Lemon song famously steals a lyric from that same Johnson tune. The one that goes, "You can squeeze my lemon till the juice runs down my leg." Now, Crossroads is a song by a man who lived in just after the turn of the century, of the 18th century, into the 19th century. And Robert Johnson made a pact with the devil, as the song goes. Now, the myth goes Robert Johnson had been playing down in Yazoo City, over at Beulah, trying to get back up to Helena. A ride left him out on the road. He was hitchhiking next to the levee. Walking up the highway, guitar in his hand, propped up on his shoulder, on an October cool night it was, full moon, filling up the dark sky, Robert Johnson started thinking about Son House, a musician, preaching to him, that said, "Put that guitar down, boy, you driving people nuts." Robert Johnson, needing, as always, a woman and some whiskey. Big trees all around, dark and lonesome road, a crazed, poisoned dog howling and mooning in a ditch alongside the road sent electrifying chills, it said, up and down Robert Johnson's spine. Coming up at a crossroads just south of Rosedale, Robert Johnson feels bad and lonely. Knows people up the highway in Gunnison, where he could get a drink of whiskey and a little more. Women. Man sitting on the side of the road, on a log, at the crossroads said, "You're late, Robert Johnson." Robert Johnson drops to his knees and answers. That when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. It's the Spaceman. The Robert Johnson myth. selling your soul to the devil. It's the Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640, shows a view from space. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Just starting the story of the Robert Johnson pact with the devil myth. Hitchhiking around Yazoo City and Beulah, Helena, Gunnison. And comes across a man after getting dropped off. One of the rides took him as far as they were going to take him. It was at the crossroads. Johnson got out of the car and waited a while. Some pretty eerie things happening at that particular time, like the howling, poisoned dog moaning in a ditch alongside the road, sending just crazy, chilling feelings up and down Robert Johnson's spine. And at that crossroads, just south of Rosedale, Robert Johnson, feeling bad, lonesome, thinking about where he could get a drink, whiskey and some loving from a woman. Knew a place down up the road just a little. Gonna wait for a ride. There's a man sitting on the side of the road on a log at the crossroads, saying is what I said to you before the break. You're late, Robert Johnson. Johnson drops to his knees and says, maybe not. The man stands up, tall, bare-chested, and black as the forever closed eyes of Robert Johnson's stillborn baby, and walks out of the middle of the crossroads where Robert Johnson kneels. He says, stand up, Robert Johnson. You want to throw that guitar over there in that ditch with that hairless dog and go on back up to Robbinsville and play the harp with Willie Brown and his sideman's son? Because you just another guitar player like all the rest. Or you want to play that guitar like nobody ever played it before. Makes a sound nobody ever heard before. You want to be the king of the Delta Blues and have all the whiskey and women you want? Robert Johnson replied, there's a lot of whiskey and women, devil man. I know you, Robert Johnson, says the man. Robert Johnson feels the moonlight bearing down his head, the back of his neck, as the moon seems to be growing bigger and bigger and brighter. It feels like the heat of the noonday sun bearing down, and the howling and moaning of that hairless dog in the ditch penetrating his soul, coming up through his feet and the tips of his fingers through his legs and arms, settling in that big empty place beneath his breastbone, causing him to shake and shudder like a man with a palsy. Robert Johnson says to the man, that dog gone mad? The man at the side of the road's laughing, saying, that hound belongs to me. He ain't mad. He got the blues. I got his soul in my hand. Dog lets out a long, soulful moan at that time, howling like never heard before, rhythmic almost, syncopated grunting, yelps and barks, seizing Robert Johnson like a grand mal, and causing the strings on his guitar to vibrate, hum, and sing with a sound dark and blue, beautiful, soulful chords, notes possessing Robert Johnson, taking him over, spinning him around, losing him inside his own self, wasting him, lifting him up into the sky. Robert Johnson looks over in the ditch and sees the eyes of the dog reflecting the bright moonlight, or more likely so, it seems to Robert Johnson, glowing on their own. Deep, violent, penetrating glow, too. Robert Johnson knows and feels that he is staring into the eyes of a hellhound as his body shudders from head to toe. The man says, "Dog ain't for sale." Robert Johnson couldn't answer. Man goes on to say, "Robert Johnson, can't have the dog, but the sound can be yours. That sound of the Delta Blues." Robert Johnson said, "I gotta have that sound, devil man. That sound is mine. What do I sign?" Man says, "You ain't got a pencil?" Robert Johnson, "Your word is good enough. All you gotta do is keep walking north. But you better be prepared. There are consequences." "Prepared for what, devil man?" Robert Johnson asked him. "You know where you are, Robert Johnson? You're standing in the middle of the crossroads. Midnight, that full moon is right up over your head. You take one more step, you'll be in Rosedale. You'll take this road to the east. You'll get back over to Highway 61 in Cleveland. Or you can turn around and go back down to Beulah. And just go to the west and sit up in the levee and look at the river. But if you take one more step in the direction you're headed, you're going to be in Rosedale at midnight under this full October moon, and you are going to have the blues like never known in this world. My left hand will be forever wrapped around your soul. Your music will possess all who hear it. That's what's going to happen. That's what you better be prepared for. Your soul will belong to me, though. This is not just any crossroads. I put this X here for a reason. And I've been waiting on you." So Robert Johnson, the myth goes, rolled his head around, his eyes upward in the sockets to stare at the blinding light of the moon, which has now completely filled the pitch-black Delta night, piercing his right eye like a bolt of lightning as the midnight hour hits. He looks the big man squarely in the eyes and says, "Step back, damn old man. I'm going to Rosedale. I am the blues." The man moves to one side and says, "Go on, Robert Johnson. You the king of the Delta Blues. Go on home to Rosedale. And when you get up in town, you get you a plate of tamales, because you know what? You're going to be needing something on your stomach when you're wherever you're headed." People say that the crossroads where Robert Johnson made that pact with the devil is Clarksdale, where Highway 49 intersects with Highway 61. There's a song, by the way, Highway 61, by none other than Bob Dylan. You see, that there was a true story. There is such a thing. Pact with the devil. It's made in music all the time. I have to ask myself, like the Black Hole Sun song. Chris Cornell wrote it. Just died. May 18. Just a few weeks ago. Had a great career. pact with the devil? Possibly. Death row suicide. Cornell suffered a lot from depression, substance abuse. Found dead in his Detroit hotel room early in the morning of May 18th, 2017. Did he kill himself? Or did they just go in and help him out? Just finished performing a Soundgarden concert night before. You know his early life? Like David Bowie. Had something in it for the Catholics. His mother was an accountant and a psychic of Jewish background. And Chris Cornell often described both of his parents as alcoholics. Was the middle kid of 6 kids. He attended the Christ the King Catholic Elementary School, where he performed for the first time in front of a crowd in the 60s. But his mother pulled him out of the Catholic school because, well, this was in the 7th grade. His mother pulls him out, and his sister too. And Cornell actually claimed later because they were about to be expelled for being too inquisitive. In other words, they were bucking the religion and trying to tear it apart all that time. Well, if you have a mother as a psychic, you got a pretty good head start, don't you? So I'm just wondering if maybe the pact with the devil was up at the crossroads for Chris Cornell in May of this year. The lyrics to Black Hole Sun are very revealing. If you hang around, you'll hear them. They're next on Talk Radio AM 640. Spaceman. The show's a view from space. That's all it is. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640 and a view from space. Emails to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. Just telling the story, the last segment about Robert Johnson, the legendary myth that many, I believe, programmed superstars have actually lived in their life, lived out the actual pact with the devil, as Robert Johnson wrote about in the song Crossroads, which was actually renamed Crossroads from its original title. Now, the original title, of course, was that Traveling Riverside Blues. And which brought me to Chris Cornell, who wrote the song Black Hole Sun. Because Black Hole Sun is actually the eclipse of the sun, the total eclipse of the sun. And there happened to be one over his home country coming this year, Monday as a matter of fact. And Cornell took his own life back in May, just after Soundgarden concert. And he was the one who wrote Black Hole Sun. Was he, I put it to you now, was he in a pact with the devil? And the pact really gave him a time limit. When the black sun appears in the sky over the U.S., you check out. The lyrics to Black Hole Sun, quite revealing. It goes, in my eyes, indisposed. Now, indisposed means unwilling, reluctant, loathe, total disregard. In my eyes, I totally disregard anything on this planet. His next line is, in disguises no one knows. So he's putting on a front. It It's a disguise, but you don't know it. That's not the real Chris Cornell. Next line is, hides the face, lies the snake. The snake, of course, is Satan. Lucifer. The Garden of Eden. Beguiles Eden. Does the snake. The next line is, the sun in my disgrace. Boiling heat, summer stench, neath the black, the sky looks dead. Describing an eclipse. Call my name through the cream, and I'll hear you scream again. Lucifer calling him in. Cashing the debt. Then the chorus kicks in. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? You know what the rain means, of course. In poetry, it's always meant the same thing. Trouble. Wash away the trouble. Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come? The song actually sounds like he was in that frame of mind where he wanted to check out then. Next lines go, stuttering cold and damp. Steal the warm wind, tired friend, sorry. Times are gone for honest men, and sometimes far too long for snakes. In my shoes, a walking sleep, and my youth I pray to keep. Heaven sent hell away. No one sings like you anymore. Speaking about Lucifer, of course. Black hole sun, won't you come? Wash away the trouble. Rain. Repeat it again. And again. And again, as the chorus. And then, hang my head. Drown my fear. Till you all just disappear. Checking out, dying. Hang my head. Drown my fear. Then back into the chorus again. Black hole sun, won't you come? Black hole sun, call, please, won't you come? All the way to the end. You tell me. That song became an incredible hit for the band Soundgarden and brought Chris Cornell an incredible amount of fame. You see, Lucifer is the goddess of the black sun, which is truly the great dragon, the Typhon, the snake, the mother of all creation and of all of humanity. Typhon's self-begotten son was Sut, the ancient Egyptian god, which was Sothis, or Sirius, which the dog star is named after, which in later reckonings, Sut was then named after the planet Saturn, which was called in earlier times in history concerning Christianity, Satan or Lucifer. Lucifer is not just female or male. Lucifer is androgynous, meaning that its very ancient creator is both male and female. Typhon, Sut, are known to be joined as one in an androgynous existence. So the Egyptian myths of these two gods are separate beings, and basically not correct. Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, just another myth, not of the microcosm of godhood as seen by Typhon and Sut being self-begotten, but as the microcosm in the creation theory of humanity. To point out the black sun is symbolic of the creator of the world, which is the black goddess Typhon from the land of Kem, which means black in Egyptian, the black land of Egypt. She was the creator of the black race, the first race of man. The black sun is indeed hidden and not recognized by the masses as the true sun god, but the people are led to believe that the sun is the The sun that is represented as yellow, the visible color we see in the sky. Yet the mystery deepens, since this is the microcosm of our existence. The true black sun, or the true Lucifer, is hidden deep in more symbolism in the macrocosm. That's why there's the blacks in America right now that are involved in all of this racial violence. The black sun is symbolic of the creator of the world, which is the black goddess Typhon from the land of Chem, the creator of the black race, the first race of man. There are three forms of suns known in esoteric literature, you know. The third is pretty much hidden in many books in the past and present. There's a word called the sun behind the sun, which may be called as the sun behind our local sun. It's called Sirius, the dog star I talked about not long ago on this very show. There are three Sirius planets surrounding her, A, B, and C, which also cosmically allude to the existence of three suns. The third sun is called the galactic sun, which is a black hole in the depths of our solar system. The Illuminati want you to believe this sun is the true God of our entire existence. This God is the creator of the alien beings. The black sun is the black hole. The creator, Lucifer, the creator, is veiled with so much secrecy, it's hard to find information even on its existence. This God is also called the supersolar force, as mentioned in some books. Heinrich Himmler was the Grand Master of a coven of 12 SS men. He was the 13th member, just like Christ, of course. And he conducted many black magic rituals at Wewelsberg Castle, which was the home of the Nazis in the Second World War, their fortress. More on that when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. It's Spaceman. More next. Emails. The only way I communicate. Space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. We call him MJ. Listening on the Gulf Coast. The Mississippi Delta is a magical place. So much history. Birthplace of American music and the King Elvis. And to think now it's the poorest region of America. MJ, love checking out the show. I was just letting us know that Robert Johnson, that whole area, steeped in the blues music. Such a power down there. So I was talking about Heinrich Himmler, Grand Master of the Coven of SS men. He conducted numerous black magic rituals at Wewelsberg Castle. These rituals were conducted in the utmost secrecy, too. They actually included necromancy, communication with the dead. Wewelsberg had a lot of powerful satanic symbols inlaid in its floors and its walls, ceilings. In 1945, this castle, under the orders from Himmler, Wewelsberg, blowing up. Why? To keep it from the invading armies. That's why. Some of the castles survived, and a lot of it's actually been restored. Or wouldn't you know it, the Illuminati would be all over that. The symbol of the black sun is seen in a lot of places in it. And in one room, it's designed much like Stonehenge. True paganism, which is synonymous with Satanism, is known for its emphasis on the sun, of course. There's such thing, during solar eclipses, as solar eclipse magic. Occultists all over the world will be participating in this highly occult ritual come Monday, I can assure you. When eclipses take place on the planet, the occultists get to participate in some of the ancient, most forbidden knowledge that goes back all the way to King Solomon. Eclipse magic is considered one of the most powerful forms of witchcraft, and all of witchcraft, not for the faint-hearted. The adept will ask, if you want to attempt anything like that, are you wise and strong enough? Oh, I tell you, some ritual magic at its highest level will be performed this coming Monday. I love it when these types of events come along, these types of dates. I'd love to be able to be the fly on the wall and follow some of these very powerful people to see where actually they go and what they do on those dates, those nights like that. So, when they do their rituals under the light of the total eclipse of the sun, exposing Lucifer as the dark side, the life that accompanies and embraces all life, to the Illuminati. And there's the adept, part of the circle, part of life. And it's designed to become a bonding ritual with the overarching symbolism of we are one. When the ritual is complete, as the sun comes to the complete total eclipse. Can you imagine what types of things are being planned by these people who attend these rituals that are in these high places? Now, as well as trying to discern the truth from all that you see on this overhyped eclipse, there's some pretty incredibly wild things that are on the internet. There's one headline that read, "End of the world, 4 days as rare black moon phenomenon sparks apocalypse." The end of the world is coming in just 4 days' time as a rare lunar event triggers Armageddon, according to some of the incredible claims. This outlandish claim in the book of Joel, which says the sun shall be turned into darkness the day before Christ's return, this is getting a lot of the Christians all excited. There are many who believe that the solar eclipse and the black moon is going to signal the end of the world. The so-called black moon will happen at the upcoming solar eclipse, visible only from the United States, come Monday. It's one of 4 types of black moons that can occur. It is one of the very rarest. But rather than just providing a spectacular visual display from the ground, evangelical Christians are convinced, well, a lot of them are, that it marks the beginning of the rapture. Where God snaps up his chosen ones. They bypass death and go directly straight to heaven with him. There are you ready? Exactly 8. The sun worshippers number 8 doomsday theories floating about the internet about the August solar eclipse coming up Monday. and a very eerie Nostradamus prediction. So on August 21st, people from Oregon to South Carolina will be able to witness this solar eclipse, and many even may be witnessing their deaths. Stated on the internet. I kid you not. Oh, yes. The Illuminati would not miss any of this for the world. Well, wait a minute. Maybe for the world they miss it. That's how badly they want it. The Illuminati-controlled mass media has its hype technology cranked up to the max with this coming total solar eclipse, referencing a man by the name of Michael de Nostradame. You don't know him as Nostradamus, the 15th century French physician and seer who's best known for his books of predictions called La Prophétie. A lot of these people credit him with predicting major world events like Adolf Hitler, the rise of Adolf, the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center reunion, and the Challenger explosion. Now he's apparently predicting the end of the world again. Since these predictions were made a couple of centuries ago, their translations can't be counted on 100% because everything is up to interpretation, isn't it? And some people are really taking that to heart. People believe that Nostradamus foretold Donald Trump's presidential election. And some theorists have referenced mentions of a flood, a conflict, a bunch of crazy BS that could happen during the coming solar eclipse on Monday. Here's the prediction that has people convinced Nostradamus heard it first. It was actually called Century 3, number 34, in the Nostradamus cataloging of his predictions. It goes this way. When the eclipse of the sun will then be, the monster will be seen in full day. Quite otherwise will one interpret it. High price, unguarded. None will have foreseen it. Obviously, the whole monster thing is what has theorists flipping out about the solar eclipse being the end of the world. While there's no scientific evidence to prove it, this is what Nostradamus' believers are saying could happen Monday. The theory references another solar eclipse that they said happened in August of 1999 over Europe. The same time, Vladimir Putin became Russia's prime minister, their leader. The whole, it will be interpreted quite differently, means he's the monster. But people didn't know it then. So during this eclipse, Putin might just reveal his true colors as the Antichrist. They've got trending on the net. The theory also connects to another theory that when Putin, also known as the monster, the Antichrist, is seen in the daytime, he'll launch a missile attack at the United States. And this would ultimately, of course, start World War III. So, if Putin, being the Antichrist, wasn't scary enough for you, how about the genocidal Mongolian Emperor Genghis Khan coming back to life? That's number 2. Another theory ties into the passage believed to have something to do with the solar eclipse. In the year 1999, the 7th month, from the sky there comes a great king of terror to bring back the great king of the Mongols. Mars rules triumphantly, before and after. Mars, of course, planet of war. Theorists believe that the great kind of the Mongols refers to Khan, who was buried in an unmarked grave when he died in 1227. They think his grave would be found and opened, and out of his tomb would rise this future terror to mankind, also known as Khan Reborn. Genghis Khan's tomb will be found, and he'll be reborn. Now, Putin, being the Antichrist, wasn't scary enough for you. How about the genocidal Mongolian Emperor Genghis Khan coming back to life? Another theory ties into another passage believed to have something to do with the solar eclipse. In the year 1999, in the 7th month, from the sky there comes a great king of terror to bring the great king of the Mongols. Mars rules triumphantly before and after. They think that was Khan. Here's number 4. An asteroid could collide with Earth, causing a tidal wave. People who like to connect the dots between Nostradamus' predictions and hidden prophecies in the Bible believe that a passage of the book of Revelation could actually mean an asteroid is headed directly towards Earth. Because the reference line mentions 7 lamps of fire burning, and they believe it means the asteroid will break into 7 pieces and cause a massive tidal wave. Number 5 and the 8 theories on what's going to happen Monday next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm Space. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. M.A. writes, what are your thoughts on Rahu causing the solar eclipse rather than the moon? Because, of course, it's the moon getting in between the Earth and the sun, of course, blocking the sun out. And since the moon, much smaller than the sun, but is closer, is actually big enough to blot it and, totally eclipse it. Now, Rahu is interesting. That's one of the Navagraha, which means 9 planets in Vedic astrology. It's paired with Ketu. The time of day, as a matter of fact, considered to be under the influence of Rahu. In Vedic astronomy, Rahu is considered to be a rogue planet. So that's where my emailer is going with that. I'm sure we're going to be okay, and there's not going to be an asteroid or a rogue planet that is going to collide with Earth. Now, number 5, what could happen on Monday? There's 8 things. Alien invasion could actually happen on Earth on Monday because of this total eclipse of the sun. Of course, some people believe that the monster described in the first solar prediction is actually a group of monsters or aliens. And they think that during the eclipse, people will see an alien invasion fleet with possibly, are you ready? Brace yourself. Sitting down with Jesus Christ on board, making his second coming appearance. Number 6 in the top 8 things that could happen on Monday with the total solar eclipse. A mysterious planet could hit Earth and wipe out all of humanity. Planet X, Rahu, giant mysterious planet named Nibiru, will collide with Earth during the eclipse. So, while NASA has stated that the planet is an internet hoax, it's often used to predict the end of the world, which is now believed to be Monday, August 21st. It refers to a passage in the King James Version of the Bible that states, the stars of heaven and their constellations will not show their light. Now, number 7 of the top 8 things that could be happening on Monday, it'll be the beginning of one of the 13 plagues in the Bible. Some Christian fanatics claim that the eclipse will not only bring the end of the world, but might also bring one of the prophesied 10 plagues in the Bible. The Nibiru cataclysm movement involves some doomsayers who believe 10 plagues have already started, with unusual swarms of insects being reported. Now, the final thing that could happen of the top 8 on the internet, if you checked, destruction will continue starting with this Monday. It will continue until 2024. That's the second solar eclipse time in America, which doesn't happen until April 8th in 2024. Yeah. I'm not so sure any of that will happen, are you? Not even in the back of my mind, really. Totally discount it like a story in a comic book. So, for man, the tip of the mysteries of time and space, as Einstein would have put it, have finally been seen, glimpsed. This new view of our world would culminate in a theoretical perspective scientifically called the theory of everything, as well as what's known as a grand unified theory. These theories, in their particular way, explain everything from the dynamics of a subatomic entity to the formation of universes, the visible and the invisible, the above and below. Pretty much, in short, everything around us. In spite of this, the average person is, without doubt, beyond the last one to know just what the long-term effect of the implementation of these theories might actually entail. See, the modern disciplines of quantum physics, cosmology, the dynamics or subatomic entities hold mysteries well beyond what the general public is actually being fed, and the powers that be do not want these understandings divulged. It's possible that the very events of Einstein's miracle century, as he called it, before and after, are detailed in the prophecies of Nostradamus. That points to a long century, referencing 1905 all the way up to 2005 in space-time manipulation. For example, the backward fast-forward movement of time. The coding within these prophecies reveal the forbidden secrets behind the manipulation of time and space, or space-time as it's called, via the understanding of the dynamics of a subatomic particle called the photon, and its antiparticle opposite called lambda. Wow, as it is above, so it is below. You have the in the United States, really, really plainly, and quite often now, the protest group and the counter-protest group. This is the same thing. The subatomic particle, called the photon, and the antiparticle opposite, called the lambda. Now, it's all based upon these decoded prophecies. But there is a clear, distinct message here. Time and space are connected. And the end is coming. Details of this manipulation specifically concern the ethereal passage of 1,000 to 1,200 years in a 100-year period. Space-time manipulation, whose summation would actually equate the bypassing of the second coming, the end days, the 1,000-year rule, also known as the Blue Beam Hoax Project by the Illuminati, and the manufacturing of a new world order in its place. Nostradamus spoke of Einstein's miracle century as the long century, as he called it, and as well referenced a period before Einstein's light and acceleration theories, before the return of light, the photon, and after the Golden Age, which is the Age of Aquarius, which we're now entering, which of course references the condition or age that his accomplishments or work would have brought us into and out of. Einstein himself is recorded as coining the phrase photon and blueprinting its acceleration dynamics, how time could be slowed down or speeded up through manipulation of the velocity of light. For that, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, in 1921, for his photoelectric effect theorem, the electronic energy generated from photonic light particles. Einstein himself is recorded as coining the word photon and blueprinting its acceleration dynamics, how time could be slowed down, in other words, and conversely speeded up through manipulation of the velocity of light. This, along with other papers he submitted in 1905, Special Relativity and its remodified version, the cosmological constant, or lambda, he did in 1916, and there's the pinnacle of what would generate Nostradamus' long century, which would close a few years ago in 2005. This code meaning of this long century referenced the ethereal passage of 1,000 to 1,200 years, as I said, the 1,000-year rule in a 100-year period. What Nostradamus described as the return of the time of the evil one, it's a coded reference to the period of which Bluebeam's protocols, doctrines would be made manifest after a long century, after 2005 somewhere, and specifically between 2000 and 2050 and beyond. Even events occurring 2 years after that 100-year period, and around the 1905 to the 2005 area circuit, are revealed by Nostradamus in his prophecy and include what actually references psychoses occurring in this time, whose behavior includes ideas regarding contact with the dead, specifically games or sports that involve a ghostly sacrifice. Now, the Blue Beam Project, which I've talked about quite a few years ago, that's included in the manufacture of a ghostly entity, or satanic ghosts formed of electromagnetic frequency, as a Bible-like entity called the New Messiah. More on that when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. Spaceman. This is A View from Space. I'm a Spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. You've got some information you'd like to pass along to me? You got a critique of the show, or just like to say where in the world you're listening to AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640 from? Space at 640toronto.com. One of the emails, the other, Spaceman at 640toronto.com. So the Blue Beam Project includes the manufacture of this ghostly entity, or satanic ghosts, formed of electromagnetic frequencies, as well as a biblical-like entity called this New Messiah, which will be the Antichrist. Year 7 of the great number being passed, there shall be seen the sports of the ghostly sacrifice. Not far from the great millennium, that buried shall come out of their graves. Yes, the dead shall rise from their graves. This prophecy actually describes the condition of the societal mindset of the American psyche as a result of this Blue Beam hoax of the second coming, or what is otherwise described as the sports of the ghostly sacrifice, which involves ideas of the buried, the dead rising out of the graves. Now, the protocols of this Blue Beam Project called for the universal manifestation with electronic means, or otherwise references the generation of what was termed satanic ghosts through the manipulation of electromagnetic frequencies and their collaboration to the frequencies of the human brainwaves, generating paranormal activity. It's called this: the Antichrist will be able to appear in the sky to all the people around the world and speak to them in their own language. And of course, one person couldn't do that, but the manipulation of electromagnetic frequencies and the manifestation of a ghostly entity or satanic ghostly form through the electromagnetic frequencies that would be put into the sky. The sky would actually be above these great cities of the world that we know, like a movie screen. Technology that is not beyond the realm of a possibility, especially with today's incredible forays into digital. Now, Nostradamus, born 1503, Saint-Remy de Provence, in France. His prophecies, published in 1555, considered a seer, a time traveler even, living in two realities. The whole of this description actually reflects on Nostradamus' understanding of the secrets behind the ability to generate an alternate dimension, existing as another reality. This is actually all reflected in his prophecies, too. He was a Jew of French birthright, said to be a devout Catholic. The family is said to have converted from Judaism to Catholicism by the time Nostradamus was 9. And it's cited that it is important to remember the Jewish element of Nostradamus' childhood when trying to decipher the prophecies, as he was greatly influenced by occult Jewish literature, namely the Kabbalah. Part of his knowledge concerned the Hermetic discipline, which included Chaldean astrology. He wrote to his son Caesar that after viewing certain books he burned them, so that none might be tempted to use occult labors in searching for the perfect transmutations, whether lunar or solar, of incorruptible metals. His prophecies were said to have been written in the 16th century in order to depict the 20th century, of which 2/3 of the work is purportedly really devoted to. The prophecies are said to end with the 7th millennium, corresponding to the biblical chronology, highlighting the conclusion of the Piscean Age after Christ, approximately 2000, the year 2000, which would then change to the next new age, which would be the Aquarian Age, the one we're in now. But these two ages, no one really knows when one ends and one begins, because these two ages of the Piscean Age and the Aquarian Age, the age of the Antichrist, these two ages are actually said to overlap one another. This period would actually host and be witness to an event alluded to by several different prophets as the end times. The doomsday prophecies of Nostradamus tell us, as it regards before and long after the century, the condition of the immediate world as it sees itself with an impending end, as proof that the doomsday prophecies have a basis in reality. Now, in the early years of the 1900s, Einstein himself and other scientific minds actually felt that the universe was set to come to an end. Einstein agreed. This end would come as a result of what was and is still called the Big Rip, our universe ripping apart. Or what's called the Big Crunch, too. Our universe imploding on itself. These concerns were so real, they generated an urgent need, which was filled by Einstein in the form of cosmological constant, the reformulated lambda, as he named it, whose theoretical physics were thought to be able to keep the world, the universe, static, so as not to change any further and thereby halt any impending catastrophe that would devastate us in the greatest proportions. These two scenarios, in any event, would represent what is really illustrative of the disintegration of the universe. And this, of course, could easily be viewed as a doomsday. But in reality, this destruction actually referenced that of the American psyche, idealized as the material universe of man. For example, his soul, his mind complex. Later observations proved that the universe, whether in the form of a slowdown or a static condition, in any event was expanding or changing, which contradicted the physics that Einstein actually believed in. Einstein removed the constant from his equations as a result, calling it his greatest blunder, the worst mistake he had ever made. The physicist Edwin Schrödinger, a colleague of Einstein's, by the way, all but plainly stated in his 1952 book, Mind and Matter, that if the halting or manipulating of time for the purpose of avoiding a doomsday scenario, for example, the destruction of the universe, was the prevailing religious thought at that time. But an examination of one of the thoughts lectured by a man by the name of Schrödinger, whose mindset, Edwin Schrödinger, and whose mindset and time was in line with the mind of Einstein, revealing the reality of the pervading thought of a possible end of the universe being at hand, and what these scientists did to forestall such an event. There's got to be quite a few movies that tackle this exact scenario, isn't there? Programming us. In Schrödinger's book, colleague of Einstein's, the book's called Mind and Matter, he wrote, I suppose it is this, that it meant that the dethronement of time as a rigid tyrant imposed on us from outside, a liberation from the unbreakable rule of before and after. What he's talking about is no more time. And to be allowed to play about with such a master's program believed unassailable until then, to play about with it, albeit in a small way, seems to be a great relief. It seems to encourage the thought that the whole timetable thing is probably not quite as serious as it appears. And this thought is a religious thought. Based on the religious thought, in consideration of what I just told you, what Schrödinger referred to as the Master's program is a coded reference to the biblical entity, the Lamb, or the Master, and being liberated from before and after time. Liberated from time. Because I believe that on this planet Earth, this is the only place where time exists. You leave this earth, you're out of time. There is no time. That's how a soul can live forever. The Master's program, what Schrödinger referred to, the coded reference to the biblical entity, the Lamb of the Master, being liberated from time. Generating movement backward, before, or forward, after. And having done so, experiencing great relief in knowing that the situation was not quite as serious as it appeared at first sight. In other words, if these scientists were successful in stopping or halting a catastrophic event, such as their material universe coming to an end, then they would also negated the final return of the biblical entity, the Armageddon end times event, and the 1,000-year rule, all said to come to pass in King James Version of the Bible. Would bypass all that. Negate the final return of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Stop Armageddon end times. Stop the 1,000-year rule. This is the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640. There's more AVFS when I return. I'm the guy to call the Spaceman. This is AVFS and Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. So, Eric Cheatham wrote a book, Prophecies of Nostradamus, and in its introduction, this lady states that the word century has nothing to do whatsoever. Nostradamus uses this word century quite a bit. Has nothing to do with 100 years. It was called that because there was 100 verses or quatrains in each of the books or centuries, of which Nostradamus intended to write 10. Making 1,000 quatrains in all. She goes on to say that there were indications among Nostradamus' papers that she was considering adding the 11th and 12th century, which seems to have been prevented by his death. Most books translating Nostradamus' prophecies recognize 12 centuries, although 7, 11, and 12 are actually incomplete. She also writes that it was a commonly held theory in the Middle Ages that the world would actually come to an end at the beginning of the 7th millennium, and that this information originated from the Book of Enoch. And the Kabbalah is involved in the Book of Enoch. Enoch, of course, the 7th man born from Adam, which was removed by the Church, Catholic Church, from the Bible in the year 300 AD. Now, could these incomplete centuries actually refer to the years between 2000 and 2012? And the idea of some great expectancy set to occur in that period. In mythology, there are several ancient understandings regarding the ages and their end, which correspond to the scenario I just talked about. One understanding involves the Hindu concept of this dynamic creation cycle, or whatever, otherwise seen the idea of the world ages totally 12,000 divine years, with one divine day equal to one mortal year, the 12 months of the year. The microcosm of this 12,000 year period, 12,000 divine years, how long the earth will last for, the microcosm of this period is 1,200 years, reflecting what is the mortal length of the Hindu Yuga, called Kali, otherwise referenced as the Black Age. So as based upon Hindu mythology, 1,000 such ages equals what is a day called a kalpa. After 100 years, reflecting upon the lifespan of Brahma, life is said to be exhausted, returns back to its divine source, from which a new creation is then said to begin. So that reflects on the biblical idea as stated in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, which emphatically states to be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. This verse, and another from Psalm 90, verse 4, which states, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday, a day when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Actually code for the manipulation of the forward movement of time. What I talked about with Albert Einstein. 1,000 years in either one day or 100 years go by. It's possible that the numbering of the centuries and quatrains of Nostradamus' centuries, verses, 100 each, and quatrains 1,000 in all, actually reference this same forward movement associated with a 1,000 to 1,200 year passage in 100 years, or a day being like 1,000 years, just as stated biblically in the King James Version of the Bible. Another mythology concerning the inception of a new age or period sees the pantheon of Egyptian gods, said to be collectively named the Tepi by the ancients. And these entities are said to have come into the mindset of man, specifically described as a void or a vacuum for the first 12,000 years, and for the purpose of creating man's reality. The Tepi void or vacuum spoken of in the subject that I just talked to you about, expressed by Einstein, of compacting time or stretching time, whose energy within the identified is called lambda by Einstein. Is it possible that this mythology is actually referencing Einstein's vacuum? And what are the dynamics of special relativity in generating inertia within this dark matter area of the brain? Now, this is where it gets, for me, very risky. When man starts to play around with the brain, it's one thing to swap organs in and out of the body, but the brain matter, you play with that, I believe that's evil. You can have a void and a vacuum, all right, playing with someone's brain. You can wipe them out totally. Wouldn't even be able to put a thought together. And they're even talking about interfacing a human brain with technology. Here's the thought. For man to be able to live forever, he needs multiple bodies. So you could conceivably, with this idea that's postulated here tonight on AVFS, on Talk Radio AM 640, you could actually conceive of an entity, a brain, being downloaded into another body. So that when this body wears out, you just download yourself through software, through interface of computing, into the brain matter of another body, so that man could live forever. But I don't believe man should be living forever here on Earth. body itself protects you from the violence and the destruction that's here on, and in this place only here on Earth. I tell people I name myself the Spaceman because I've never been to this planet called Earth before. And when I leave, I'm never coming back. So while it's understood that there is absolutely no evidence in the academic literature that shows any prophecy of Nostradamus as having ever been interpreted as actually predicting a specific event before it occurred, other than in vague general terms that could equally apply to any number of events. Even so, the very reality of this Blue Beam project, which I talked about, the New World Order and its leader, the new Messiah, as a hologram in the sky, has only been prophesied by Nostradamus 450 plus years ago, but also by none other than Edgar Casey, called the Sleeping Prophet, whose prophecies reveal the time frame and events corresponding to this blue beam conditioning environment that I just talked about. This is the Spaceman on Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more when I return. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. Thanks so much for the one that you have sent me. I appreciate it, I really do. So technology, as it has been revealed to us today, it's very powerful. There is programs that are now, I believe, already written that go way beyond what we're being shown. But to download someone's brain into another body and begin living your life through that body until you run out of that body and download yourself into another one, I think is very far-fetched. But the technology that we have today can actually do some incredible things. How do you think all of those refugees, so-called, let's call them immigrants, really, looking for a better life, how do you think they all got here? They got here through the technology. They found out how to get here through the internet, with the systems set in place by the Illuminati to facilitate this. By, say, having some guys who own some boats load as many people as he can on it, take it out into the Mediterranean, install it, and have a non-governmental organization that's waiting for them, picking them up on their radar, to go out and fetch them and bring them in, going, wow, they were stranded out there on the Mediterranean and now they're on your shores and they have nowhere to go. I believe this mass migration from the east to the west will flood all the North American countries. And all this flood of people, of these different cultures, alien cultures if you like, alien to us, will eventually overwhelm white North America. People with no concept of what the North American psyche, the headspace, is all about. Say, for instance, the U.S. Constitution, what it stands for, and who will, in consequence, then therefore do nothing to defend it if it gets into trouble, in whose minds the concept of liberty and justice is so weak as to matter very, very, very little. Food and shelter would be the main concern for them. And no central bank, except for the Bank of International Settlement and the World Bank, would be allowed to operate. Private banks would be outlawed in the New World Order. Remuneration for work performed be under a uniform, predetermined scale throughout the one world government. No wage dispute will ever be allowed in this new system. You see where we're going? Nor any diversion from the standard uniform scales of pay laid down by the one world government. And those who break the law will be instantly executed. That will be the new way to look after this. The New World Order's style of governing the people. No cash, no coinage, in the hands of the non-elite. No money at all. All transactions carried out by means of a debit card, which will have the ID number of the holder. Any person who in any way infringes the rules and regulations of that will have the use of their number suspended for varying times according to the nature and severity of the infringement. Some will be just outright rejected, some killed. The New World Order will be just this way. Those types of persons we're going to find when they go to make purchases, their card or their number, if it's on their hand or in their forehead, will be blacklisted. And they'll not be able to obtain services of any kind. Attempts to trade should be treated as capital crime, subject to the death penalty. And if the offense is a real serious one, their number will be null and void. You won't be able to get food, shelter, employment, medical services, water, anything. And you'll be officially listed as an outlaw. Large bands of these outlaws will be then created, and they will live in regions that best afford the sustenance for life. But they'll be always subject to being hunted down and shot on sight. You know the zombie movies? That's the pre-programming. Persons assisting outlaws in any way whatsoever will likewise be shot. Outlaws who fail to surrender to the police or military after a declared period of time will have a former family member selected at random to pay the price. And already you can see some of this starting to creep in. But when the flood of the different alien cultured people flood in, and this is what many people, when they see these refugees on their doorstep, are very apprehensive as to accepting them, the price that they'll pay, on the type of attitude and the type of mindset that they bring with them. Now, rival factions and groups like Arabs, Jews, and African tribes will have differences magnified, be allowed to wage wars of extermination against one another under the eyes of NATO, of course, the UN. The UN observers will be there. Same tactics already being used right now in Central and South America. These wars of attrition, you could call them, will take place before the takeover of the one world government, and will be engineered on every continent where large groups of people with ethnic and religious differences live. Like the Sikhs, the Muslim Pakistanis, the Hindu Indians, ethnic and religious differences will be magnified, exacerbated. Violent conflict, as a member of settling their difference, will be encouraged and, well, even fostered, set up, planned. All information services and print media will be under the control of the one world government, much like it is now. Regular brainwashing control measures will be passed off as entertainment. Brainwashing control measures passed off as entertainment. They're doing that now. It's already become a practiced and fine art in the Western world. Programming through entertainment. Young girls, young guys removed from their disloyal parents, they'll receive special education designed to brutalize them. Youth of both sexes will receive training to qualify as prison guards for the one world labor system camp. It's obvious from the way we're going now that a lot of work before the dawning of the New World Order can continue is underway. In the chasm ahead, a man by the name of Ariello Pecci, who founded the Club of Rome, by the way, especially in his book, The Chasm Ahead, really illustrated the plans of the Illuminati in the New World Order to tame man, whom he called the enemy. Pecci quoted that Felix Dzerzhinsky once said to Sidney Riley at the height of the Red Terror when millions of Russians were being murdered, "Why should I concern myself with how many die? Even the Christian Bible says that man, that what is man, that God should be mindful of him. For me, men are nothing but a brain at one end and a excrement factory at the other." That's how the Illuminati see the unwashed masses, all right. It's A View from Space on Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more right after this break. Send your emails, space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. Thanks for the one you sent. You've heard of the International Court of Justice, all right, haven't you? At The Hague. It's going to be used in increasing measure in the next few years, to settle legal arguments of all types. It's going to be the go-to court. It's, of course, the prototype for a one-world government legal system that'll really take the place of all the other legal systems around the world. And central banks, they all don't know what to do right now with this economy that's stalled, this global economy, because they want to kill it. Central banks essentially are the big block of control in the planning of the New World Order. This is already very much in progress, with the Bank of International Settlements dominating the scene. Private banks are fast disappearing in preparation for the big banks that'll control banking the world over. Will be morphed into one. Welfare states around Europe, the United States, fast becoming the largest welfare state in the world. Once people come to depend on government for their subsistence, it will be very hard to wean them away from it. We've seen the results already. States, for instance, 98% of the people return to Washington to enjoy the good life in spite of their utterly deplorable records. Same old cronies. And what's really being worked on hard, stateside, abolition of privately owned firearms, already in force in 3/4 of the world. Only in the United States can the citizens still own guns. Of most all types. But that legal right is being chipped away at slowly, but surely. And private gun ownership will have become a thing of the past in the United States in the not-too-distant future. Same thing with education, being eroded at an alarming rate. Private schools are being the only ones now to go. In the private schools, you have to be elite rich to get there. Others forced to close. Variety of legal stratagems, lack of funding. Standard of education in North America has sunk to an incredibly deplorable level that today can hardly be classified as education at all. It's more like daycare. This, of course, is according to plan. The one world government does not want the youth to be very well educated coming up. The dumber you are, the easier you are to control. The more you know or the more you read, the more you think, the more dangerous you become. Destruction of national identity proceeds at breakneck speed. It's no longer a good thing to be a patriot unless it's in the cause of some one world government project like the war of genocide being waged against the Middle East, or the impending destruction of Libya, or the racial pride. The United States, Britain, Western Europe, Canada, all countries having the largest concentrations of the white race under attack. Led by the secret societies in America, I've told you over and over, destruction of the Republican forms of government has proceeded at breakneck speed since the close of World War II. Started then. A list of governments, agencies destroyed by the U.S. Government is long, and it's difficult for the uninformed to accept the government of a country allegedly wedded to republicanism under a unique constitution. You'd never think that what's happening there now could ever be possible. Tearing down of historical statues because to back slavery. But the facts speak for themselves. See, in a truly free and open society, you should be able to let anyone say anything that they want, and just give them enough rope to hang themselves. But to ban them or shut them up or to shout them down is the road to destruction. But that's where we're going, and this goal was set over a century ago by the Committee of 300, planning the one world government. The United States has led the attacks on such governments that do it. Even the United States Republican base is being steadily undermined. Yeah. They're a Republican in the presidency right now. in the new parliamentary system to come, the New World Order, members will not be responsible to their constituents, the way it is now, but to the parliamentary whips, and will vote the way they're told to vote. So, by judicial and bureaucratic subversion, the Constitution of the United States, of Canada, the laws will all vanish, as will individual freedom, already now being eroded irreparably. Pre-planned degrading of man through licentious sexual practices is going to be stepped up. New sexually degenerate cults are even now being set up. Now, you might think this phase of creating a whole new cult which specializes in sexual degenerate behavior is far off. But information will tell you that it's due to be stepped up, not shut down. Soon the big names of Hollywood, the stars, the entertainment world stars, will be recommending this or that as a must for live sex shows. Unprecedented assault on moral values will go into high gear. Pornography will no longer be called porn, but adult sex entertainment. Sloganeering will take the form of, why hide it when everybody does it? Let's take away the image that the public displays of sex that are ugly and dirty. No more will those who care of this type of unbridled sexual lust ever have to go to seedy porn parlors again. Instead, the upper class supper clubs and places favored by the rich and famous will make public sexual displays a highly artistic form of entertainment. And the all-pervading and enormous social psychiatry apparatus put in place by the Tavistock Institute and its huge web of related capabilities is put into control of one single entity, and that single entity is still in control over all the people. Now, what I'm talking about is, say, the system I'm describing now. You're in high school. Someone in your high school dies in a traffic accident. Well, they send in the counselors to help you get over it. This is what I mean by the enormous social psychiatry apparatus put in place. It's a power structure and a power center that operates far beyond the reach of any single world leader or any government, including the United States government, its presidents. The late John F. Kennedy found that out. You know, popular entertainment, especially the medium of movie making, was used to bring discredit on those who tried to warn of this dangerous threat to individual liberty and freedom of mankind. Freedom is a God-given law, which man has constantly sought to subvert and undermine, yet the yearning for freedom by each individual is so great that up to now, even today, no system has been able to ever tear the feeling from the heart of man. The experiments have gone on in the USSR, Britain, USA even, to blunt and dull man's yearning for freedom. So far proved to be pretty damn unsuccessful. Yeah. I tell you, the coming New World Order, One World Government, far-reaching experiments will be stepped up to drive man's God-given yearning for freedom out of his mind and his body and his soul even. What we are already experiencing is nothing but a mere bagatelle when compared with what's to come. Attacking the soul is the thrust of a host of experiments being readied for you now that we haven't even seen yet. And I regret to say that these institutions in the United States are going to play a leading role in the terrible experiments which have already been carried out on small scales, like they do at Bethesda Naval Hospital and Vacaville Prison in California. So, I tell you, it was really something that most of us never ever expected to come along, to be able to face that kind of attack. But they're bringing it off. This war on terror has a whole lot to do with taking away your personal freedoms and rights and striking them from the books forever. And whenever they take a freedom away, you'll never, ever get it back, even if they say it is temporary. It's Spaceman on Talk Radio, AM 640. More next. I'm Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Final segment, tonight's show. Now, I made a statement last Saturday night, as a matter of fact. That was the North Korea nuclear confrontation show, where I stated that the United States and their Dow would sink below 22,000, having the opportunity to use this nuclear confrontation hoax as a reason to stop hitting the buy button. And I said it would never reach 22,000 again. What I meant by that, it was we'll never get to 22,000 again and stay there at the close. But it did on one day. I said that Saturday night. Sunday it was closed, of course. Monday it opened, and lo and behold, 22,024 was the close. But I went to my notes and I looked again, and I knew it was going to slip below 22,000, and I believe now that it has gone there to stay, because we have now come off of that Monday last 22,000 close. I don't think we'll see it again. As a matter of fact, I know we won't. Because you see, it's a network of Wall Street banks and brokerage houses that takes care of the stock market for the Committee of 300. All those corporations. And is prominent among these J.P. Morgan, Kuhn and Loeb, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. Nothing happens on Wall Street that is not controlled by the Bank of England, too, whose instructions are relayed through these groups that I just talked about, and then put into action through key brokerage houses whose top executives are ultimately responsible for carrying out the Committee of 300's directives, the Illuminati's business structure. Remember, some of the richest family in the world live in Europe. So it's natural that they should have a preponderance of members on the Committee of 300 that controls the business sector in the world. The von Thurn and Paxos families, who once owned the German postal franchise, make David Rockefeller look like a very poor relation. The von Thurn und Taxis dynasty dates back 300 years. Generation after generation of family members have had seats on the Committee of 300, which they occupy to this day. We've already mentioned by name a lot of the wealthy Venetian black nobility members of the Committee of 300 on past shows, and other names that have been added. New players. Now, the Committee of 300 corporations, banks, insurance companies operate under the unified command covering every conceivable matter of strategy and cohesive action. The Committee of 300 is the only organized power hierarchy in the world, transcending all governments and all individuals, however powerful and secure they may find themselves to be. This covers finance, defense matters, political parties of all colors. You see, the problem we have now, it's gone so far that there is no entity the Committee of 300, the business arm of the Illuminati, cannot reach and control. That includes the organized religions of the world. This, then, is the all-powerful Olympian group I speak of, whose power base is in London, and the City of London's financial centers, with its grip on minerals, metals, precious gems, cocaine, opium, pharmaceutical drugs, finance, banks, cult promoters, and even the founders of rock music. The British Crown is the controlling point from which all things radiate. As the saying goes, they have a finger in every pie. It's obvious that the communications field is tightly controlled, too. The Illuminati-controlled mass media, as I call it. All three major television networks came as spin-offs from RCA, especially the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, which is the first closely followed American Broadcasting Company, after that ABC. The third big television network, Columbia, CBS, which, like its sister companies, was still and is still dominated by British intelligence. All three of those networks in the United States represented on the Committee of 300 are affiliated with the giant of the mass communication business. And you know what they've done? They have now moved their money into new technology, digital. So they're going to kill these major television networks, cable. And they're already going to own what the next big thing is, which is streaming. Internet. Yes. It's one of those things where if you don't follow at the very beginning and follow you lose who they are, what they are, because they're so elusive. So, I can my only power is this radio show to fight the fight. And you and I don't really have any substantial organization. So anyone that's so well organized as the elite cabal, you don't stand a chance. You know, Edward Bernays, he wrote a book called Crystallizing Public Opinion. In 1928, a second book of his was published, simply called Propaganda. That's what I call the news today. And in it, Bernays describes his experience at Wellington House. Bernays was a close friend of master manipulator H.G. Wells, by the way, whose many quasi-novels were used by Bernays to help formulate mass mind control techniques. You see, Bernays is supposedly the father of advertising. He was the guy who got doctors to sell cigarettes. He was the guy who got women starting to smoke, putting them in the Easter parade, smoking cigarettes. Now, H.G. Wells, one of his cohorts, was not shy about his role as leader in changing lower-class societies, mainly because he was a close friend of the members of the British royal family and spent a lot of time with some of the most highly placed politicians of the day, men like Sir Edward Grey, Lord Haldane, Robert Cecil of the Jewish Cecil family, that had controlled the British monarchy since Cecil became the private secretary and lover of Queen Elizabeth I. Leo Emery, Halford Mackinder of MI6 and later head of the London School of Economics, whose pupil Bruce Lockhart would become an MI6 controller of Lenin and Trotsky during the Bolshevik Revolution, and even the great man himself, Lord Alfred Milner. One of H.G. Wells's favorite watering holes was the prestigious St. Ermin's Hotel. It was a meeting place at the Coefficient Club, a club to which only certified gentlemen were admitted, and where they met once a month. All of the men mentioned above were members and also members of the Souls Club. H.G. Wells claimed that any nation could be defeated, not by direct confrontation, but by understanding the human mind, what he called the mental hinterlands hidden behind the persons. With such a powerful backer, Edward Bernays felt confident enough to launch his propaganda book. As civilization becomes more complex, and as the need for invisible government has been increasingly demonstrated, the technical means have been invented and developed by which public opinion can be regimented. With the internet, ideas can spread rapidly and even instantaneously across the whole of the world. Back then, though, Bernays had not yet seen how much better television, which was to follow, would do the job. Pictures. Seeing, believing is what television's all about. And then you mix that with CGI. Well, you've got yourself a propaganda machine. And that's what's passed off as entertainment and news for us today. This has been A View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. Coast to Coast is next, and I'm out.